Welcome back, and today we're going to talk about a subject that's a little more in depth than the last couple episodes I've done. Now, I've talked about white supremacy, and I've talked about slavery, and I've talked about Taylor Swift and the Roman Empire. I've talked about immigration, and all of these are hot topics in the news, in entertainment, in the world as we live in. But today I'm going to talk about something a little closer to my heart, a little closer to who I am, a little closer to reality for most people. And while Taylor Swift is reality, immigration policy is reality, it's not something people struggle with every day in everyday America. Now, some people struggle with immigration. Some people struggle with, the election theories and they get really riled up, or Taylor Swift, or maybe they fantasize about the Roman Empire. But today I'm going to be talking about men. I'm a man. Other people out there are men, right? And there's a lot of women who watch this, or a lot of girls, or a lot of teenagers, or 20-somethings, or 30-somethings and older. And what I don't think we appreciate about men is the silence most of us keep. Now, I've talked about anxiety, ADHD, depression on my videos before, and how I've struggled with it. And what I've realized over the last months, since really March, is how much I've hidden or repressed or beaten down the amount of anxiety, depression, ADHD, all that stuff that I actually have, the amount of stress I'm under every day, the amount of not feeling worthy, the amount of not feeling adequate. And it brought me back to a TV show, because that's how my mind works, is television. And there was a character on there, a show called Married with Children. Now, the character's name was, Al Bundy. Shoe salesman, had a wife, 2 kids, no one respected him, right? And Al went every day to work. He did his job. He worked his 40 hours a week, fitting women with shoes that didn't like him. He dealt with stress from his wife, from his kids. He never had what he wanted. He was a high school football star. He had dreams of becoming more. He had dreams of being someone important. But then reality hit. And this is what he said, and this is the part that really caught my eye and my ears and my brain. So someone called him a loser. It was his next door neighbor. That's how she was. And she calls him a loser, and he has been called a loser by everybody under the sun for years. Everyone has picked on him, put him down. Middle-aged white guy with no hair, balding, with a bad car, bad job. No one respects him. So he says this: so you think I'm a loser just because I have a stinking job that I hate, a family that doesn't respect me, a whole city that curses the day I was born. Well, that may mean loser to you, but let me tell you something. I wake up every day enduring watered down Tang and a still frozen Pop-Tart, climbing into a broken car with no upholstery, no gas, making payments, and fighting traffic, all to serve people I despise. I'll never play football like I thought I would. I'll never know the touch of a beautiful woman. And I'll never know the joy of driving without a bag on my head. But I'm not a loser, because despite it all, and every other guy who will ever be what we wanted to be are still out there being what we don't want to be 40 hours a week for life. And the fact that I haven't put a gun in my mouth makes me a winner. The last sentence, that's really what I'm talking about. Men commit suicide. Men deal with stress of everyday world stress. They deal with it at a higher level than almost anybody else. On average, men deal with it more than women. Now, there are women who deal with it. There are women who struggle. But I'm just trying to talk about what I've experienced as a man, and what people I know have experienced, and what the world shows through science, statistics, and history. Being a man is difficult. And in 2025, I feel like being an old school man is even more difficult. Men in the 1800s probably needed therapy. Men in the 1900s probably needed therapy. Men today need therapy. The difference is today it's more accepted than ever. In the 1800s, 1700s, you had war, you had famine, you had disease, you had kids dying at a young age, you had people dying at 30, you had just disasters everywhere, and men were meant and told to just deal with it. Women didn't work, they raised the kids. Men's whole job was to support their wife, their kids, and everybody around them. Now, you can get into the political part where they had slaves and some of them didn't do a lot of work, but the average man did not have that. The average man worked and toiled and broke their back trying to support the people they loved. Now, does that mean that women didn't work hard? No. What it means is men at the time worked hard. They were sweeping, coal mining, everything else in between, right? But we were told to sweep it under the rug, crush it down, suck it up, cupcake, move on, rub some dirt on it, all these different phrases. And why? Because we're men. We promise sarcasm, dry humor. We promise that through tragedy, we'll try to be funny or witty. We'll be a shoulder to cry on, but we don't need one. We're there for you. Because we're not allowed to cry. Throughout history, we weren't. Men don't cry. The same actor played a different character later on. And he talked about how he was playing football and he tackled somebody and dislocated his shoulder. And his dad told him to suck it up. Men don't cry. You know, that's the point. Men don't cry. In medieval Europe, suicide wasn't just frowned upon. It was literally considered a crime against God. If you took your life, the church wouldn't bury you on a consecrated ground, no matter how much you gave to them. Sometimes families even had property seized, as if grief wasn't enough. Basically, sorry, your dad is dead. Also, we're going to take the cow, because God said so. This created centuries of stigma. Men couldn't admit despair without being branded a weak or sinful. Dry humor, you can think about dry humor, right? We all came up with dry humor. A lot of us guys came up with sarcasm and dry humor. Why? To shield ourselves and others from the pain we're feeling. It's just how we worked. And because of that dry humor, sometimes our families, our friends, our loved ones don't get it. And they think we're being insensitive or that we don't care. Okay? But if you think about this, in the medieval times, man commits suicide. The church comes and says, God said so. They take everything. It's like a modern insurance company denying coverage for a technicality. Oh yeah, sorry, your loved one is gone. But our paperwork says you didn't suffer correctly. So, sorry, not sorry. Fast forward, England legally treated suicide as a felony until 1961. It was called self-murder. Bodies of men who died by suicide were sometimes buried at crossroads with stakes to their chests to prevent restless spirits. It's just sad to think about. Restless spirits? Really? Okay. Imagine dying in despair and getting a Yelp review afterwards. This man failed life and failed death. 0 stars. For families, it was financial ruin and shame. Men, especially those were expected to be providers. Were trapped in a system where even in death, they had to maintain the perfect appearance of a provider. And let's talk about war. I've experienced war, and maybe not as much as some others, but I've experienced it. Not a big fan. In World War I, soldiers breaking down under shell fire were called cowards or lacking manhood. Some were executed for desertion, even though today we recognize that as PTSD. Suicide rates among veterans spiked in every major war, but society preferred to honor heroes than face the epidemic. Turns out if you put humans in trenches surrounded by mud, rats, constant explosions. They don't thrive. Who knew? If you think about today's modern mental health, right? There's still a stigma around the military. You can say you have PTSD or stress or anything else. We've had mass shooters of military people who have snapped. And the record shows that they talked to command and then their whole life was ruined. Because that's what happens. And military people know that. And now they're terrified to this day. We wait till we get out to talk about our stress. During the Industrial Revolution, the Victorian morality, men were told to have a stiff upper lip, to be strong, stoic, breadwinners. The emotional bandwidth of an average Victorian man was work, provide, die quietly. Men's inner lives got ignored. Mental health equals weakness. Suicide rates climbed, but newspapers often called it sudden illness or an unfortunate incident. It'd be like you reading the paper or online, an online obituary. Mr. John Smith tragically perished after accidentally ingesting 12 feet of rope. That's kind of what they did. Today, suicide is still disproportionately high among men. In the US, men die of suicide 4 times more often than women. Yet men are far more less likely to seek therapy or talk openly about their mental health. You just don't do it. It's not normal. It's how you feel. The stigma lingers. Only now it's less about God or crime. It's more about masculinity scripts. Be strong, be silent, don't bother anyone with your pain. Men will literally die rather than go to therapy, or worse, start a podcast. I'm doing therapy, but a podcast helps too. And I've tried to instill my kids about therapy, even though I don't always understand it. And that's because I've seen the benefits of it, even if I don't always understand it. I sometimes think there are people out there who go to therapy so they can say they're going to therapy, but that's a very few percentage. I think the percentage is lower than what I used to think when I started this journey. So what do we take? How do we deal with? How do we learn from history? Men's mental health struggles are not new. They've just been consistently hidden, shamed, punished, squashed. And the silence is deadly. The hopeful part, we're at least talking about it now. Slowly, awkwardly, but we're talking. And if history has taught us anything, it's that silence kills faster than honesty. So if you're struggling to talk to someone, break the pattern. You don't have to carry 1,000 years of stigma on your back. You just have to go through today. Today. Not tomorrow, just deal with today. It doesn't matter if the doctor says, well, you need meds. The meds don't make you weak. It doesn't matter if your wife or some person demeans you, your friend, your best friend, your battle buddy, your the guy you went to school with, whoever it is. It doesn't matter if they say, oh, you don't need therapy, just have a drink. Do this. No. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay not to be okay. And I think that's the whole point of this is we need to stop thinking that as men, we have to have a stiff upper lip, that we have to be strong-willed, that we have to be, shoulders of steel that can carry the world upon them. We're not meant to. We're not designed to. As men, there's been a history of us being the alpha male, and a beta male isn't what you want to be. There is no alpha males, guys. Everybody struggles with it. The big takeaway I also see is the women and the people in our lives, and I'm saying women because this is a men's topic, the women in our lives. It could be a 20-year-old in college. It could be a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 35-year-old, a 50-year-old, an 85-year-old. they need to understand that men are allowed to have feelings. We're allowed to struggle. We're allowed to have days where nothing works right. We're allowed to cry. Now, I don't cry a lot. I've been crying more lately, I guess you can say, through everything I'm doing, through medication, through therapy. I'm realizing that it's okay. But I didn't cry as a kid. I didn't cry at my grandparents' funerals. I didn't cry at my mother's funeral. I've cried at very, very few times. And it's every time I do, I feel like I'm less than, I'm not as good as. And that's got to stop. That's going to be different for our world. We've got to fight the stigma that men aren't allowed to have emotions, because we are. So here's the last thing I'm going to put out. There's a phone number out there, okay? The phone number is 988. Okay, the phone number is for people who are thinking about suicide. Now we have 911 for emergency, 988. Now they have a special, you had a certain number through the menu if you're a veteran. If you're a veteran, or even if you're a family member of a veteran, hit that number. And that's because suicide rates among veterans are even higher amongst male veterans. And male veterans who have deployed and female veterans who have deployed, we have gone through things that normal therapists don't always know how to deal with. So these guys on these lines are trained specifically for that. So call the number. If you need the help, get the help. If you like these videos, even the hardcore ones like this, or you have a comment, or you think that I'm not doing this right, or you think that you have a better way of dealing with mental health, leave a comment. Tell me. If you want to share a video or share my video, go ahead. If you want to share a video with me that describes it or explains it better, I'll listen. The point of these videos is to help me and maybe help someone else out there. It can be something as funny as Taylor Swift and the Colosseum of the Roman Empire, or how immigration is not a new thing, or how the 2020 election is now being taught as history, which is still scary to me, or how George Washington was asked to be king, or just having kids or being married. It's all about helping one another grow and see different perspectives in the world. My perspective isn't right. Yours isn't right. All of us are a melting pot of ideas, thoughts, beliefs. And sometimes my thoughts and beliefs are amazing and people think they're great. And sometimes, well, it's a Tuesday and they don't. That's the point. I'm doing this, you're watching this, hopefully to feel better, to learn something, or maybe because you feel like you owe me one. Either way, thank you for watching. Have a great day.